This video today is going to be about sketching using Inventor. Now this might be difficult for some people that's coming from maybe using AutoCAD or a MicroStation or any kind of 2D program that you've been used to doing drafting in. It works a little bit differently, but I think it works a little bit better. It takes some of the precision out of it, and you will find that you can do stuff in the beginning and then you can go back and add the precision to it later. We're going to be doing 3 different sketches, but for time constraint, I'm going to do one of these sketches in each video. So we're going to start with this one today, but in the upcoming videos, we're going to take a look at how to do these other ones. So this first one, we're going to take a look and we're going to start, and in Inventor, you're going to find that it really doesn't matter where you start. I like to just kind of sketch out the thing freehandedly, and then I'll come back and I'll make it more precision when I put the decimals on it. So the first thing I always look for in a drawing is what units. And you can see by these being 40 and 60, these are some big numbers. So I'm going to assume that in this case that it's going to be millimeters. So when I go to Inventor, I'm going to set it up to be millimeters. Okay, so when you first open up Inventor, and this is one of those things that if you haven't saw my setup video for Inventor, this is one of those screens that may start when you first open it up. So I'm just going to go to start working, and then I have to decide what units I want to do. By default, and remember that we check in this little sprocket here, we can see that our units are set to inches. But if I want to make all of my defaults set to millimeters, I can select it here. But I am going to be using some inches drawing, so you have 2 other options that you can use. I can click the flyout here, and then I can select metric. And now I can select what I want to create. Do I want to create a drawing? Or do I want to create a part or anything of that nature? So in this case, if I was going to use a part, I can use the standard millimeter IPT. By double clicking on that, it will go ahead and give me a IPT, so it'll start that template. Or you have these quick little options here on the side that I can create a new part with. If you don't like using that method, or you may have forgot it, you can always come up to New, and it should give you a dialog box. And from here, I can select the metric, and then I can go underneath the parts. Let me just expand this out just a little bit more. And then I can create a part that I want. And this is a sheet metal part. The one I need is going to be the standard millimeter IPT. So I'll go ahead and select Create. And you're going to give Inventor a little bit of time, and it's going to do its thing in the background, and then it will eventually open. One of the things that I like about Inventor, other than most of the other 3D programs I have worked with, is that the ribbon is intuitive, which means that if I activate it and I tell it to go into a sketch, all of my icons here at the top are going to change to a sketch profile. So, and you're going to learn that also another thing in this program is that you're going to wind up using a sketch to build something off of when we create more complicated parts. So here in the beginning, we just want to create a simple sketch. So I'm just going to select the Start a 2D Sketch. So whatever the words at the bottom, the icon will do what it says. If you can always select the drop down and you can go to Start a 2D Sketch, this is the exact same thing as selecting that button at the top. So remember that if you can read the words and then say Start a 2D Sketch, you can select the icon at the top. Now something that is different from the 2D programs to the 3D, I have to select a plane to put that sketch on. That plane could be a part of my part, and you're going to see that once we start creating other parts, or it can be a plane. In this case, these are origin planes. For this example, it doesn't matter which one that I'm going to use, so I'm just going to use the front one, which is the XY plane. Now sometimes you may see that depending on where you click onto that plane, that this word front or top or bottom or whatever one that you chose may be upside down. So just like in any other 3D programs, you can roll it just by selecting these arrows, or you can flip around to other views And you can even go into an isometric mode by just selecting the corner. Okay. So enough about that. Let's go ahead and start sketching. I want to create the lines first. I want you to remember that we're creating this part. So I always like to start somewhere at the top part of the object. So I'm just going to start here along this sketch or along this line, and I'm just going to go ahead and create this shape around here. Now I'm going to ignore the angles for right now. I'm going to come back and put those in and make them more accurate. Okay, so inside of my sketch here, this little yellow dot, or depending on what color scheme you have your Inventor set up to, is the origin. So I'm going to build my sketch right around that origin. So I'll start with the line, and I'm just going to go down. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that that line is locked vertically. So you can see I get a little vertical icon that's right next to my cursor. I'm just going to come down so far. I'll do a left click. I'll come this way, and I should get a horizontal one, which is popping up, and in this case it's giving me a perpendicular, which is the exact same thing. Go ahead and do a left click there. Now I'm just going to come out and rotate and give it a distance here. I don't know that distance, but I'm just giving it an angle. If you want to, you can kind of use that guide to get you close enough to 45. I'll click here. And this is one of the things that will kind of get you in trouble when anytime you're using these 3D programs, is that you will see that if you get kind of close to other things, you got these constraints that are locking up. For example, that this is trying to put a perpendicular constraint on that. Well, I don't want that to be perpendicular. So I make sure I just rotate that away. And I'm just going to do a left click, and I'm also going to make sure that I'm not in line with any of these other points. Because you will see that sometimes it will lock onto those other points. So I'm going to make sure I avoid that. And I'm just going to put it somewhere around here. I'll come up to here. Now this top one I do want to be in line. So you see I get some dotted tracking ones up there to my original point. So I'll left click there. And then I'll come back to my starting point. Okay. Go ahead and hit the escape button to get out the command. And now I'll go ahead and start putting some dimensions onto this drawing. So I'll go ahead and use a dimension. And I'm just going to select this line, and I'll come out this way, and I'll type in 40. You can see the first dimension that you put on your object will scale your entire part down accordingly. Next dimension I want to do is on this line, so I'm just going to select that line, and you can notice that I got the right to do a diagonal dimension. If I do a left click here, it's going to be along that line at the same angle. Or I can come out this direction, and I'm just going to place that dimension here and type in 40. I can go ahead and put the angles on this, and you'll notice that this dimensioning command is still activated until I close it. So I'll select here and here, and once I click here, it's asking me what angle I want to put. If you remember back to the drawing, that's 45. I can do a dimension from here to here. That was 105. Now here's one of those aligned dimensions, so I'm going to select the line here, and you can see next to my icon here, this little arrow, I have a little, it's called a parallel dimension. So I'm just going to do a left click here, and now you'll see that it will drag out, and then I'll do one more left click and type in 60. Now you have an option here to use a constraint, or you can put an angle on here. Since it's at 90 degrees and I know that 90-degree angles are perpendicular, I'll show you how to activate or use a constraint on this one. But just remember that if you want to use a dimension, I can select this one and I can type in 90, and it will put that on there. Let's go ahead and delete that dimension. I'm just going to hit the escape button and select that dimension and delete it. Or I can use the perpendicular constraint. So these constraints are exactly like some of the ones that you may have learned in AutoCAD or in some of your other 3D programs like SolidWorks, but they work exactly the same. So I'll go ahead and go to perpendicular, select that line and that line. Now those are perpendicular. You'll notice that I don't have an angle on it, but I do get the icon here. Go ahead and hit escape because it stays active in that perpendicular command. And now finally, I need to give it a dimension here, which is going to be a radius. So I'll go ahead and go to fillet. I can choose the radius, which is going to be 10. Now this is one of the hard things to do, is to stay away from hitting enter after you activate this fillet command. So once you type in 10, do not hit enter. Go ahead and select these two lines, and you'll see that you will get a radius of 10 on it. You'll notice from the drawing that this line here and this line are equal to each other. There is an equal constraint, which is located here, or I can go back and use a regular dimension like I did on the first one. So I'll go ahead and use the dimension. I'll select this line, and I'll come up and place it, and I'll type in 40. Okay, so all the dimensions are put on this drawing, and it's fully constrained as a drawing wise. But you have to remember that we're working in 3D, and that first point on this drawing is the origin. So we have to locate this according to that origin. That's why if you look down here at the bottom right corner, it says 2 dimensions are needed. And that's going to be your X dimension from the origin and your Y dimension. So let's go ahead and put a dimension on it. And I'm just going to say from this endpoint to that origin, I'll place it here, and I'll tell it that I want it to be 40. Okay. And then I'll do one more dimension from this endpoint to that endpoint. I'll click here, and let's make that 40. Just kind of pan it up a little bit. You'll see that it is fully constrained. And you'll notice that when I was doing dimensions, if it's a whole object, I usually select the object. But if I want something specific, I'll select the endpoint. So just like you did in your other programs or 2D programs, you can dimension by selecting those 2 endpoints. In this case, I was using the objects, which makes things a lot easier to dimension. Okay, so from here you can go ahead and finish the sketch, and you can see that my ribbon has already changed the drafting. Once I hit finish sketch, it's going to jump back to whatever my 3D function or whatever I want to use it is. So from here I can go ahead and I can revolve it, I can extrude it, I can do anything that I want to, so I can continue to the next step. Okay, so I hope that you kind of learned something about sketching. And one more thing before I go, if you happen to have made a mistake, you can always come over here and you see the icon where it says sketch. Double click on the icon, and that will take you back to the sketch. And then if I wanted to finish this sketch, and instead of going up here to finish, you always got that function in the right click, and then you can use finish sketch. Okay, so those are 2 ways how you can go back and edit that sketch, or you can finish the sketch while you're inside of the command. I hope you enjoyed watching this kind of short video on sketches, and like I said, there will be some others coming out where we're looking at different kind of sketches, and hopefully it's going to be good practice for you, because once you figured out how to sketch in this program, modeling becomes a lot simpler and easy. Just build off of each sketch. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed watching this, and thanks once again.